Hello everyone, welcome to Accounting 210. In this video, we talk about chapter 3. We go through our handout and then we practice some problems together. Um, Chapter 3 talking about job costing. Job costing. So what's the meaning of job costing is when you get a job offer order, you want to know, hey, what's the cost for this job? The job is, hey, making this blue pen, or another job is making this purple pen, or this pink pen, or make this yellow pen, right? So you have different jobs, and then we want to find out what's the cost for each job. So your first job is your first job. Your first task is you have to know there are two different costing. One is job costing, one is process costing. Talk about job costing now. You don't need to worry about process costing in our class. Make sure you read this table, know when will you use job costing, when will you use process costing. I'm not going to repeat, we all did this in class. Next thing I want to talk about this one more time with you, is that the flow of the cost is we start from the raw material inventory. This is your raw material inventory. And then once you start working on it, it became a working process. So how do you have a working process? Is you have a direct material, you have a direct labor, you have allocated manufacturing overhead. So you have these three different things. And then you became finished goods, and then became cost of goods sold. Direct material and direct labor, they can be traced, so it's easy to find. Our job is how do we get our allocated manufacturing overhead. We say manufacturing overhead like utility, you really don't know how much is used to go to this pen, and then go to this pen, and then go to this pen. So we really cannot trace. So our way is just to allocate it. How do we allocate it? Talk about our rate is you have to use your estimated manufacturing overhead divided by your estimated cost driver. And once you get the rate, you time the actual cost driver to get your allocation. So I just go through this handout first. And then you have your direct material, you have your direct labor, you have your allocated manufacturing overhead. So those three will give you the total cost of the job. So when it's manufacturing overhead, this is your allocated, because you really cannot know the exact amount. You can only allocate it. Okay, so look at this job. We said you had this indirect labor, direct labor, whatever. So what's the cost of goods sold? So basically, what's the cost of the job is your direct labor, direct material, and then we allocated manufacturing overhead. Direct labor is 10,000. Direct material is 20,000. We want to get allocate. You estimate, so you want to get the rate, right? So allocate manufacturing is the rate time your actual cost driver. So this is 30,000 plus. The rate is 500,000 allocated based on direct labor, allocated based on direct labor. So it's 100,000. So that gives you $5. And what is our actual direct labor? Actual direct labor is 10,000 direct labor. So that's 30,000 plus 50,000, so gives you 80,000. That is our cost of goods sold. That's our cost of goods sold. Okay, so give you some idea. And the next thing is basically talking about manufacturing overhead and then the journal entry. So we said when you really incur your manufacturing overhead, you first put them, this is your actual manufacturing overhead incurred. You first put indirect labor, indirect material, and then all the others put to this kind of swimming pool to hold it. Once you know your numbers, and then at the end, you can allocate to this job, allocate to this job, allocate to this job. Okay, because when manufacturing overhead incurred, you don't really know, hey, it's because of this job or this job or this job. You cannot know. all you can do is you hold all the actual number, you wait. Later, it allocated to this pen, and then to this pen. Okay, so let's kind of do a practice together. I'm not going to do this post my note to the blackboard. And then you also need to know your over allocation or under allocation. We also practice one later, but you compare your actual with your allocated. There is nothing to do with your estimated. You never ever use your estimated manufacturing overhead one more time. You use your actual and your allocated. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to first do a journal entry with you. That's what we kind of did in class. I want to do this step by step with you. I think if you already knew this, that's perfectly fine. If you don't know, you want to watch it, watch it. First thing said, what's the journal entry, right? First, ask you the rate, allocate manufacturer direct labor. So we said it's based on direct labor hour. It's based on direct labor hour. Kind of just highlight it. Estimated budgeted, you know, is 4 million, and then based on 800,000 direct labor. So it's $5 for one direct labor hour. So what's the meaning? When your direct labor works 1 hour for you, then that means that is direct labor, but also related with a $5 manufacturing overhead allocation. Okay, so let's do the journal entry. Do the journal entry, blah, blah, blah. First one, right? Purchased this, and then for all these costs, so you purchase this, then on account, right? So you will have raw material, you know, or direct material, you know, or just inventory. I don't really worry too much. Whatever you are comfortable in your financial accounting, you can just put it there. Raw material, direct material, 1,200,000. I put it there. And then we have our account payable, right? Because we put on account. Second is that when we used it, it became to our work in process. When you use it, it became our work in process. How much? We used the 320,000 yard. So from the first one, you will know for 1 yard is 1,200,000 divided by your 400,000 gives you $3 for each yard, right? Gives you $3 for each yard. So you use the 320,000 yard, you times 3, that gives you the dollar amount is $960,000. So we used our raw material, we have to credit it. So our raw material decreased by 960,000. That's our second journal entry. Our third one, this is a good one, I would say. You pay the factory custodian staff, right? This is your factory custodian staff of 80,000, and then you paid the custodian staff headquarter 32,000. So if it's a factory, this will be your manufacturing overhead. If it's your headquarter, this is your period cost, and it be expense immediately. This is your period cost and will be expensed immediately. So although they are all your staff money, you pay them, but one works for the factory, one is headquarters, they have a different account. So when you pay the factory staff, so you increase your manufacturing overhead. When it really incurred, you put to manufacturing overhead first. You put to manufacturing overhead first. So that is 80,000. And then you paid, so you decrease your cash, 80,000. When you paid your headquarter custodian staff, it's the salary expense, or you can say whatever expense, but it's just the salary expense. It's 32,000. You paid, you say, hey, cash 32,000. You say, hey, how about I combine them together? I have a manufacturing overhead 80,000. I have a salary expense 32,000. I decrease my cash 112,000. That's perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine for me. Okay. The next thing is what I want to do. Part 4. I move it a little bit. Okay. Part 4 said, total these every cost is this. You pay them later. So what you will do is, it's direct labor, right? So when it's direct labor, it can be traced in the project directly, in the job directly. So that will increase your work in process. You can put it direct labor. You don't need to just put it there. You worked for this many hours, and each hour is $13. So the dollar amount will be 128,000 times 13 gives me the amount. How much? It's 1,664,000. Okay, so I have direct labor working process. Direct labor is 1,664,000, and I pay them later. So I have a salary payable. I have my salary payable is 1,664,000. Okay, next one, talking about what next one? Part 5. Talking about the you record depreciation on the factory, So keyword factory, this is your manufacturing overhead. Headquarter keyword, this is your expense. Okay, so similarly with journal entry 3, you have to treat those depreciation separately or differently. So you say, hey, I have my manufacturing overhead. You can put depreciation, you don't need to. So manufacturing overhead is 76,000. You have accumulated depreciation 76,000. So this is, you have to know from your financial accounting. You also have depreciation expense from the headquarters, $1 million, and then you have accumulated depreciation, $1 million. Okay, similarly, you say here, how can I just combine them together? I have my manufacturing overhead 76,000. I have depreciation expense, $1 million, and then I have my accumulated depreciation 1.76 million. Is that okay? Yes or no? Yeah, perfectly fine. Next one, question 6. Okay, so you finished, and then we allocate overhead, and then we put it to our, ready to be sold. Okay, so it's one sentence, no number, but actually you have to do 2 journal entries. For question 6, there are 2 parts. First thing is you allocate manufacturing overhead. You allocate it to the job. When you allocate it, now you will increase your work in process, decrease your manufacturing overhead. Okay, so our first journal entry is when we allocate it. We increase the work in process, we decrease our manufacturing overhead. You said why? Remember the swimming pool? We said when it happens, we keep it. But when it's really allocation, we have to get all the water out. So now you put the water to the working process, you get it out from manufacturing overhead. So how do we get the dollar amount? We said when we allocate it, our rate is $5, and for 1 direct labor hour used. For this specific job, how many direct labor hours used? We use 128,000 hours. So how much has to be allocated? is $5 for 1 direct labor hour, and we use the 128,000 direct labor hour. So we have to allocate $640,000. So we allocate 640,000 to this job, became working process. We take out 640,000 from our working process. Then the job is finished. So we move it and then to the finished goods. So finished, right? So finished, we don't have working process. It became finished goods, and we take out from our working process. How much? Remember our working process, we had a working process here from direct material. We have working process from our direct labor. We have working process from our manufacturing overhead. So our balance, our T account is, we have a work in process. We have this 960,000, 1,664,000, 640,000. So our balance of work in process is 3,264,000, 3,264,000. But now we are moving it. We want it to be 0. Why? Because they are already finished goods. So we want to remove this to our finished goods. So we take out from our working process while credit it is 3,264,000, and we debit that amount to our finished goods, 3,264,000. We didn't lose them. They just transferred from working process to our finished goods. Okay, last one said we ship this and then we have invoice 5.6 million. So when you sell your products, you have 2 journal entries. First is you record your sales. You know, you can different order, but you record your sales. Do you have a cash? They didn't pay you, but they just give you an invoice. So you have account receivable, 5.6 million. You have your sales revenue, 5.6 million. But now they are not your finished goods. They became a cost of goods sold. So your finished goods also has to be 0 because you take that amount to your cost of goods sold. You still carry the same amount, and then you increase your cost of goods sold, 3,264,000. You decrease your finished goods, 3,264,000. Okay, so this is how we combine everything together. Your working process has direct labor, direct material, and allocated manufacturing overhead. The total will become working process. And when it's finished, it moved from working process to finished goods. When you sell your finished goods, it moved from finished goods to our cost of goods sold. So your this amount has to be the same as your finished goods, has to be the same as your cost of goods sold. Okay, so what I'm trying to see, another thing I want to point out is also, you know, like even for the same salary, if it's a factory manufacturing overhead, you debit manufacturing overhead. But if it's in the headquarters, you just expense it immediately. Salary expense, depreciation expense, those things. And then another thing is how do you allocate it? It's always your $5, your rate times your actual cost driver. That's how do you allocate your manufacturing overhead. Okay, I think that's all I want to talk about this journal entry. As I say, I'll post it to the Blackboard and then let me know if you have any question. Okay, I'll see you next time. Thank you.